Hi, good evening, everyone. So today we are going to look at this five blunders to avoid at XAT 2024 session. Now to start with, I'm sure that most of you would have appeared for CAT 2023, and CAT 2023, as we all know, was on the difficult side, and a lot of you might be disappointed with the score that you have got. Some of you will be happy with the score that you have got, but then again, this that was not the end of the season, right? The season continues, and the next largest test of the season is the ZAT. So if you allow yourself to get carried away by your CAT score, CAT percentile, and you sort of just keep that in mind, your entire season is going to be disappointing for you, and you will have to take another shot at all the tests, right? But then the battle is not over yet. There is one major test that is yet to happen. Of course, there are more tests, but ZAT is the second largest test, we can say, in terms of the number of takers, the number of institutes that accept your ZAT scores, and so on. So it's a very important test, and it is very important for you to not take it lightly. So a lot of times what happens is that people take the ZAT a bit lightly. They get slightly carried away by the enormity of the test, by the new section that is there, by the amount of time that they have during the test, and so on. And that leads to a disastrous outcome. Right. So over the last many years, we have seen people making a lot of blunders during the ZAT, and it is highly recommended that you avoid these blunders so that you are in a good frame of mind, you are in a good state, and you crack the test to the best of your ability, right? So ZAT as a test is completely different compared to the CAT. So whatever score you have got at the CAT has no bearing on your ZAT score. To give you some context, when I took the ZAT, when I was a serious aspirant, my CAT scores were, one year my CAT score was 98 percentile, the other year my CAT score was around 94 percentile. But in both the years, my ZAT scores were 99.96 and 99.97, right? So irrespective of what your CAT performance would have been like, your ZAT performance can be completely different from your CAT performance, right? And that is what makes it a very important test, and you have to treat it that way. You have to treat it as as it would be an important test, and not take it very casually. So in this video, we will try to look at the common blunders that people make and how can you avoid these blunders come this Sunday, right? So the first thing you have to understand is improper time distribution. So it's very easy for you to get carried away when it comes to the ZAT, purely because when you look at the entire test duration, right, the test is much longer compared to the other tests that you would have been taking. So let's say, for example, the CAT was of duration of 2 hours. The NMAT was again of 2 hours. The SNAP was a 1 hour test, and so on. But if you look at the ZAT, it's a large 165 minutes test followed by a GK section and essay section and so on, and that makes it sort of an attritional battle that is there, right? So it will be a challenge for you to maintain your focus for the extra 45 minutes at least, and then follow it up with an essay and a GK section, right? So that is basically what makes it slightly difficult. It's a test of attrition, to put it mildly. You have to be focused throughout the entire test, and you have to ensure that you are putting in your best foot come each question. On the other hand, if you look at the number of questions, at the CAT, you had 2 hours to solve 66 questions. At the SNAP, you have 60 minutes to solve 60 questions. At the NMAT, again, you will have 120 questions that need to be solved in a certain amount of time. So all those things were there, and that made the amount of time that you had versus the amount of questions that you had to be more balanced. So you had less than 2 minutes in most cases to solve each and every question. Whereas at the ZAT, if you look at the number of questions that are there, and then if you look at the kind of questions that you have to solve to do well at the entire test, you will find yourself again putting 3 4 minutes on a particular question. So even that is a norm. So even if you end up putting investing 3 or 4 minutes per question, you will see yourself attempting somewhere close to 40 questions or 45 questions, which is good enough to crack the ZAT. So that is basically what we are looking at. So on one hand, if you look at it, there is a lot of time for you to answer all the questions. On the other hand, the number of questions also becomes less, and that is where you tend to be slightly relaxed. So the first section that you are going to attempt at this that is going to be the most important section, because there is a general tendency to have your favorite section at the very beginning and then get carried away and then invest a lot of time on that section. So let's say, for example, verbal is your safest or your most favorite section, let's say, for example, and you end up investing 60 or 65 minutes on that section because there is so much to read. Each and every option needs to be read very well. You have to think about all possibilities, then mark the answer. Let's say you end up investing 60 minutes in that particular section. Now you have 105 minutes left, and then you have the quant section, and then you have the DM section. So one of these sections you will end up spending lesser time compared to what you would have planned earlier. And that is not exactly a good thing to happen. You have to ensure that you're sticking to the time limits that you have assigned. One good thing that you can do in this particular context is you can invest, let's say, 40 minutes on one section, 50 minutes on another section, 60 minutes on the third section, and then you keep 15 minutes as buffer. If that sounds a lot more than what you are expecting, what you can do is you can stick to a 30 40 50 strategy as well. So let's say, for example, you take 30 minutes to answer all the verbal ability questions. Let's say you do not attempt the RCs in the first round. You attempt only the VA questions in 30 minutes. Let's say when you're looking at the DM section, you're only looking at the caselets that you are familiar with, that you can understand and answer correctly in 40 minutes. And then you look at the quant section and solve all the questions that you are able to, say roughly 10 or 12 questions in 50 minutes. Now you are done with 120 minutes, 2 hours. You still have 45 more minutes to go, and you know what the level of difficulty of the test is. So something like this will be a better strategy than doing everything in one go. So let's say you start with quant and you invest 75 minutes on that section. You don't really know what to expect come the DM section and the VA section. So it's very important for you to go through all these sections once, and then maybe have a look at what exactly is the section, or which exactly are the questions in which you want to invest your time. So what you can do is you can have a look at the live XAT solving that I had done this year, and I had also done a similar session last year. So you can have a look at these two tests that I had solved live for all of you. So over the next couple of days, what you can do is you can just look at it as if you were watching a movie. You can solve along if you haven't solved those tests, and maybe you will be able to figure out as to what exactly does it take to solve the entire test over 165 minutes. Right. So that is basically where you will see me going through various rounds. So I might have not solved a couple of sets or a couple of RCs in my first round, but then in the second round I would have solved those RCs. So that it's very important for you to distribute your time evenly. Do not spend a lot of time on one section when it may or may not deserve that amount of time, right? So just get a hang of what exactly the test looks like, and only then will you be able to distribute your time well. So that is the first blunder that a lot of people do. Lot of time, very few questions, you get carried away, and then you are in for a disastrous time. The second important thing is DM is not equal to ethics. So whenever we talk about DM or decision making, the first thing that comes to the mind of a lot of people is that it's all about ethics. But it's not about ethics entirely. A large part of it is indeed in the form of making ethically correct, morally correct decisions. But then again, you also have to think about profitability. You have to read the question stem very well. So we had done a session with the XAT convener for this year, and we asked him this question as to what exactly does it take to crack the DM section, or do you have to be ethically correct, morally correct to answer each and every question from the DM? And he flatly refused that. He mentioned that DM, to excel in DM, you have to make sure that you are reading the stem of the question properly, which means that if the question explicitly asks you which of the following is the best way to address the situation considering profitability or keeping profitability in mind, then you have to look at that option which encourages profitability, even if there might be a slight compromise in terms of ethics. So that is something which is very important. So DM is not equal to ethics. These two things need not coexist. In some cases, when they say that okay, you have to figure out the solution which is the ethically most correct or the morally most correct section answer, and that in that case you have to look at the relevant option, otherwise it is not required. So read the question stem properly. Do not jump to conclusions purely because you feel that every answer needs to be answered, every question needs to be answered in the ethically correct manner. It's not the case. Read the question stem properly. The third thing is you cannot be casual in verbal. So at the CAT, let's say for example, out of 24 questions, you had 16 questions from RCs. At the NMAT, you would have seen a lot of questions that would be easy in nature. SNAP, again, you would have seen a lot of questions that were fairly straightforward. So there is a general tendency of people to be slightly casual when it comes to the VA section, especially at the XAT. But if you have seen the VA section over the last few years, you would have seen that the questions or the concepts tested are extremely nasty, right? So if you look at the reading comprehension passages, they will be difficult to read. And it's not as if as what happens in terms of the CAT, wherein one passage will be difficult, the other three might be moderate or easy in nature. At this ZAT, each and every passage is going to be difficult. You have to go in with that mindset. Now, obviously, one or two passages might turn out to be easy or moderate, which is a bonus. But go into the mindset that with the mindset that the passages are going to be difficult. They are going to discuss concepts which a lot of you are not going to be familiar with, and obviously all of you are in the same boat now. So it's not as if you know something or someone else knows something much more than what you do. So that is not really a test which will focus on 20 or 25% of the population. It's not going to be like that. If you are clueless about a topic, chances are very high that 99% or 99.5% of the test taking population is going to be clueless about that particular topic, right? So do not be casual in verbal. Answer all the reading comprehension passages to the best of your ability. Make sure that you are reading the questions very carefully when it comes to grammar based questions, because I remember I did one question in one of the live mock solving sessions, and I ended up marking those statements that were grammatically correct when the question was which of the following statements are grammatically incorrect, right? So those kind of errors can make or break your ZAT score. So make sure that you are paying attention to the, again, the question stems that are there, what is expected of you, and you're not being casual in verbal, because every mark counts. So at least that each and every mark that you can gather, it's going to be gold dust, right? So make sure that you are paying your complete attention to the verbal section specifically, and also throughout the test, so that you don't miss out on very easy questions or sitters that would be again spread across the entire test. Then there is this one thing, if there is one query that has been asked a lot of times across the videos, the various forums that we have interacted with students, that is what happens if there are unattempted questions, right? So Zat has done this nice sneaky bit wherein they will tell you that beyond 10 unattempted questions or beyond 8 unattempted questions, every unattempted question will carry a negative marking of 0.1. So a lot of people worry about it. They think that, okay, if I don't attempt some questions, I will end up getting negative marks. So let's attempt those questions. Now you have to realize that attempting those questions and getting them wrong is going to incur a heavier penalty compared to leaving them alone. So if you are in doubt and if you are not able to answer a particular question, it's perfectly okay. Let go of that question. Do not guess an answer purely because you are scared of getting negative marks for unattempted questions. Right? At your ZAT mocks, the SimZATs that you would have taken as a part of the IMS portal, the same thing was applied. So in case you want to just try what happens if you don't attempt a few questions, you can just try a mock and not attempt a lot of questions and see what is the outcome. You will realize that the outcome is negligible. So even if you do not attempt, let's say 18 or 20 questions, the negative marking is going to be barely 1 mark. But if you attempt those 18 or 20 questions and get everything wrong, you are going to be looking at a negative score of around 4 or 5 marks. Right? So do not attempt questions just because you are afraid of the negative marking for the unattempted questions. Do not think about all those things. It's as good as not attempting questions at the CAT. So do not worry about it. Attempt a question only when you're absolutely certain about it. Otherwise, you will end up getting much more or many more negatives than you would have otherwise, and that will spoil your attempt. So do not do that. Attempt only when you are sure, and if you are not sure, let go of that question. Even if it is 50-50, take a call on the basis of what exactly is the situation. So one thing that I had discussed in my live ZAT solving towards the end was taking or hedging my positions, say for example, right? I'm talking in terms of trading, but it works in case of tests as well. So let's say for example, again, now that's where the subjectivity begins. Let's say for example, I think that 8 is a good score in the decision making section. Let's say for example, I have attempted 10 questions, of which I am absolutely certain about 9 answers. Right? I am sure that even in the worst case scenario, I am going to get 9 correct and 1 wrong, which takes my score to 8.75. Now I believe that 8 is going to be a decent score. 8.75 is what I have got, which tells me that I can afford to miss 3 more answers. Right? So 3 more questions that I am 50-50, I will attempt in that kind of a situation. Worst case, I get all 3 wrong, fair enough. I am going back to 8 marks, which is good enough for me. But if I end up getting those right, I am going ahead by 3 marks, which will make my lead much more, how do I put it, right, unassailable, right? They will not be able to catch up, or the competition will not be able to catch up with me. And these are the half chances that you have to take once you clear your mental cutoffs. So if my cutoff is 8, and let's say in my first round I have already attempted 13 questions, I will go ahead and attempt the remaining 7, 8, 9 questions as well. Purely because even if I get all of them wrong, it's going to bring my score down from 13 to 11, which is fine because my mental cutoff was 10, right? So if my cutoff is 10, I'm already at 13. I will attempt each and every question that is pending from that particular section, purely because even if everything goes wrong, I'm still not missing my sectional cutoff or my score in that particular section. You also have to understand that 50% of your score is almost always going to be built through your quant section. So make sure that you are taking your quant section very seriously. You are solving a lot of questions from quant, especially the easier ones. And if you look at the last 2 or 3 years of XAT, you will see that quant has become slightly easier over the last 2 or 3 years. So make sure that you're not getting overwhelmed by the number of quant questions or the level of difficulty of some of the quant questions. Or in case you face some PTSD from your CAT attempt, make sure that you are attempting your XAT quant with a free mind, right? So don't worry about XAT. And the last thing, which is the most important possibly, is the thing that will not matter when it comes to your XAT score. So many of you might not really be targeting XLRI, which is fine. But those of you who are targeting XLRI, make sure that you are not taking the essay and the GK section lightly. Purely because although essay and GK, so GK will be evaluated, but it will not be considered while coming up with your score and percentile. It's just a standalone evaluation that exists as a part of your scorecard. The essay, you will not really get to know what is the score that you have got at the essay, how many marks have you got, what you could have done well, and so on. But then again, it is evaluated when it comes to the actual interviews. In fact, the same meeting, the same session that I had with the XAT convener, he mentioned that the XAT team, or the entire test conducting authority, it has an internal team of people who will sit and evaluate each and every essay that comes to them, right? So that is basically the importance of the essay when it comes to the XAT. So when you enter the interview room, there is a very high chance that they would already have a printout or an evaluation of the essay that you have written during the test. Now, just to make things slightly better for you, the essay does not, or the XAT does not expect you to write an essay which is replete with all the data that is there, factually correct data from all the IMFs and the World Banks of the world, right? We are not expected to give those kind of statistics and insights. What we are expected to provide is a thought process, right? So there will be multiple topics. Almost surely there are going to be multiple topics that are there. So even last year there was an option of choosing between topics, and the one that you were most comfortable with, you could have gone for that topic. Typically there is one topic which is extremely generic in nature, and you should ideally attempt that if you are not very comfortable with dense topics. But let's say for example you are attempting a particular or you have chosen to write a particular essay. Make sure that there is a flow that is present. It has a beginning wherein you are introducing that entire topic. Then it has a body wherein if you have two arguments, you are talking one argument in one paragraph, the second argument in the second paragraph, and then you conclude that entire essay. Now, a lot of people have this query as to how many words should be there. So there is no limit as such in terms of words, but roughly 200-ish words is good enough. 4 to 5 paragraphs is decent. So if I am talking about 50 words in one paragraph, 2 or 3 sentences is good enough in each paragraph. Just make sure that you are writing it in such a manner that each paragraph standalone is an argument, right? So introduction, argument 1, argument 2, conclusion, end of the story. Do not meander. Do not keep on typing simply because you have a lot of time on hand. Don't do that. It's okay to write a 200 to 50 word essay in 4 or 5 paragraphs with the relevant points highlighted. That's it. It's okay to not write a lot of statistics. In fact, if you write statistics and they go wrong, it's going to hurt your chances a lot more than writing statistics and then not writing statistics at all, right? So make sure that you are writing a statistic only if you're absolutely sure of the number. Otherwise, don't go for writing random statistics simply because you feel that there has to be a number in that particular essay, right? So those are the 5 blunders that you have to avoid at all costs come the XAT 2024. To address the elephant in the room, I'm sure that some of you might have got centers which are way beyond or way far away from your places of residence, right? But again, that is a hand that all of us have been dealt with. You have to sort of pick yourself up and reach your center on time. And once you reach the center, once it's 2 o'clock, I think the rest of it is going to be taken care of. So don't worry about things that are beyond your control. Life is unfair. There is a thing that has happened to you. It is fine. Deal with it and then once you come out of it, then obviously you will feel much better, right? But don't let it affect your concentration. Don't start blaming yourself or the authorities or someone else because things have not really happened according to your plan. This is one bit of uncertainty that exists irrespective of the test that you would be taking. So again, nothing that we can do about it. I'm sure they would have tried their best to give you the centers closer to your place, but even they would not have been able to do it because of logistical issues or whatever. So don't worry about it. Make sure that you reach your center on time. You are in a fresh frame of mind. Take the test as if you are going to enjoy the test, right? Honestly, that is a lot more enjoyable than any other test that I generally take in a season. I really look forward to the ZAT paper, not because I intend to take admission into some college, but because the test is designed in a different manner, right? There's something different that exists in that particular test. So that is one thing that I really like about the test. Over the last many years, I have taken what 6 or 7 ZATs is what I have taken, and every time I have ended up scoring a 99.9 plus percentile. In fact, I think my lowest percentile is 99.945. I think that is my lowest ZAT percentile overall. So again, it's a fun test. You can be consistent at the ZAT, and whatever be your CAT score, I'm sure you are going to do an amazing job at the ZAT. Attempt whatever you can. If you have comfortably cleared the cutoffs in your mind, make sure that you attempt more and just nail your section. That is very important, right? And at the end of it, you should be fine. We'll be coming up with analysis, with the first take and all those things that will happen after these acts. So we'll keep you posted on all the activities that are going to happen after these acts. Last 2 days, don't really fret much. You might want to pull out one past ZAT paper and just have a look at it just to stay in the zone. You can have a look at the live mock ZAT solving sessions that I have done. So maybe you can have a look at that as well. You can look at it as something that has an entertainment value. So you can have a look at that. Revise your formulas. Have a look at all the questions that you have earmarked and you have felt that were interesting over your last 6, 8, 10 months of your journey, and keep all the other thoughts out of your mind, right? Which college is going to give you a call, whether you are going to clear the cutoffs or not. So don't worry about all those things. All those things will be taken care of automatically if you go through the process well. We will have, or we already have, a list of colleges that accept this that we have rankings for these colleges. You can have a look at that data as well in the description box below. So all those things are present there, all the resources that we had, everything is present there. We're also done a best of that series, in which we had done one session on quant, one session on DM, one on verbal, and then because there was a lot of interest among all of you, shown by all of you, we did 3 more sessions on verbal. So you can have a look at all the six sessions that we had done. That would be good enough for last minute prep, and then you should be good to go for the test, right? So make sure that you're well rested, you are in a good frame of mind, no negative thoughts. It's going to be an awesome day. Sunday is going to be brilliant. That the test is again going to be a lot of fun. I'm pretty sure about that. And even if it is not fun, even if it is difficult or something, just look at the people around you. I'm sure you will see a lot of sad faces. Make sure that you get inspired by that and you put in your best effort, because if the others are disappointed with the test, that gives you an edge because you are prepared for the test, and you are much better prepared than everyone else, and that will give you your edge when it comes to cracking this act. So I'm sure that all of you will end up cracking this act and doing exceptionally well at this act. Stay tuned for all the content that is coming up on our channel as well. Do consider subscribing to the channel to stay updated with all the content around the test prep season that exists. All right. So wish you all the best, everyone. And I think I'll close this session now. So thank you everyone for turning up. Yep.